Monsters are spawned from simple ingredients, like dental acrylic, foam latex, and oil-based clay. Today, a new star is brought to life by the imagination and ingenuity of special effects artists and technicians.
It'll snarl, it'll blink, it'll basically act.
This is the star of Carnosaur, brought to the screen by the king of low-budget creature features, Roger Corman. Today, we'll get under this monster's skin and find out what makes him run. And we'll see how Hollywood's creature creators and puppeteers turn inanimate objects into living movie characters, so convincing they can jump right off the screen. It's the latest recipe for today's movie magic.
Human species is a disaster. Gotta be stopped.
Carnosaur is the story of an obsessed genetic scientist, played by Diane Ladd, who experiments with T-Rex DNA, and of course ends up with a monster who wreaks havoc on everyone around. The movie is produced by Roger Corman, Hollywood's legendary creator of scary B-movies. For decades, his low-budget monsters have provided the thrills and chills movie audiences seek.
Now you will do as I say.
Yes, Master.
You will go out and find me some food.
Yes, I do enjoy making creature features. The first film I ever made was a picture called Monster from the Ocean Floor, and the latest is Carnosaur. I think a creature feature is enjoyed by people all over the world. I work to a great extent on certain Freudian theories I studied back in Psychology 1A many years ago. And I think the concept of the monster, whether it be a dinosaur, a dragon, an alien from out of space, really touches on something in the universal unconscious. Somewhere in the back of our minds, from children, we knew there was a monster hiding under the bed. Our mothers and fathers may have said it wasn't there, but we knew it was there.
In addition to his own incredible cast of creatures, Corman helped launch the careers of such top directors as James Cameron, who went on to create Aliens and The Terminator, and Joe Dante, who directed Gremlins. For the Carnosaur creatures, Corman turned to a former head of his makeup effects department.
This is all going to come off, so we need a serration right around here, a nice big wrinkle that cuts all the way through that.
John Carl Buechler worked on such low-budget Corman features as Forbidden World, The Sorceress, and Deathstalker. He went on to create creatures for numerous other horror films.
There's really few things that are more satisfying than evolving a creature, like from the toenails up. You figure out what it should look like, how it should walk, how it should roll its eyes, how it should breathe. All these things are taken into consideration when you're creating a character for the screen.
At his shop, Magical Media Industries, John has assembled the kind of diverse effects crew needed to bring a mechanical creature to life. Artists, sculptors, electricians, painters, mechanics. He has also brought in a paleontologist to work with his artists on the design of the movie's dinosaurs, especially the Tyrannosaurus Rex that has the starring role. Based on these illustrations, models are sculpted from Roma plastilina, a malleable oil-based clay.
Photographs will be taken of it. I will take it to Roger Corman first thing in the morning, and he will approve and/or give notes for changes.
Designing a believable dinosaur is one thing. Building it with a range of movement, especially on a limited budget, is a much greater challenge. From the approved design, John and his team will first begin work on a miniature animatronic version of the T-Rex.
We're also creating a full-scale Tyrannosaurus Rex, which has a pretty good range of movement, at least from the torso up.
John and his crew have just 10 weeks, an incredibly short amount of time, to build both the miniature and full-scale Carnosaurs. They will spend the first 7 weeks on the more articulate miniature version. The first step is to create molds made from a hard-setting gypsum cement called UltraCal 30.
Often you design a mold in various pieces. You don't want the model to lock inside a mold.
Castings of the dinosaur skin made from foam latex will emerge from these molds. Additionally, silicone molds are used to cast teeth and gum areas, which are mixed from dental acrylic and the compound from which dentures are crafted.
And, well, let's take a look. We have our white teeth. Take a look.
Plastic understructures, which give the creature its basic shape and to which the mechanics will be attached, are also cast.
You'll get up at the shoulder point. You'll get rotation at the shoulder point. The elbow will move up and down, and the wrist will rotate thusly.
So basically, when all cables are moving together, we'll get a nice range of movement.
Right. And
John Crawford is Carnosaur's chief mechanical engineer. He will combine cable and radio-controlled mechanisms to create an interior system of pivots and pulleys, which will articulate the creature.
And the head action is controlled by 4 cables that run inside of the neck right here. They attach here, here, and the bottom. So when you pull on those cables, they draw the head either to the side or up or down. And the same thing happens again in segments back as you go through the body. So we have the head being able to turn this way while the neck is turning this way. So you can get S curves in this kind of motion.
6 tiny servos, motor mechanisms operated by radio control, are placed inside Carnosaur's head to provide facial movements.
We have an eye blink, and we have the brow that goes up and down. The lips curl in the front, and they curl on the sides as well.
But John Buechler's goal is to create much more than a complex mechanical creature.
I prefer to think of the creatures that I create as characters. They're personalities, they have attitude, they have an agenda, and they don't just slobber and growl.
As for Carnosaur, he definitely has an attitude and an appetite to match.
Beware, the creature from the haunted sea.
While Roger Corman has mastered the art of creature creation on a low budget, special effects wizards have been building big-budget mechanical monsters since the beginning of film. As early as 1907, Edwin S. Porter commissioned this bird of prey for The Eagle's Nest. Created by set builder and artist Richard Murphy, the demonic eagle, manipulated by piano wire, fought actor D.W. Griffith on a studio cliff. In 1925, art directors Otto Hunt and Carl Volbrecht designed and built a 70-foot-long dragon for the Fritz Lang epic Siegfried. Operated by 17 technicians, some concealed inside the body, the dragon was able to move its tail and head, breathe fire, and when wounded by Siegfried's sword, even bleed. "1954 was a big year for big creatures. Them were giant mechanical ants, so effective that Ralph Ayers and his special effects team were nominated for an Academy Award.
These creatures are extremely dangerous. They have already killed a number of persons. Stay in your homes, I repeat. Stay in your homes.
Ayers lost the Oscar to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, thanks in part to one of the biggest screen creatures ever made. Robert Matty, longtime head of Disney's mechanical effects department, designed and built the 2-ton squid. It took 30 men to operate the 40-foot-long tentacles, with hydraulics, compressed air, and electronics. 20 years after 20,000 Leagues, Matty was called on to create one of the cinema's scariest sea creatures. The hydraulically controlled Jaws confirmed the timeless popularity of mechanical movie monsters. But no matter how well designed and built, a movie creature is finally brought to life by the skill of the puppeteer, or as is usually the case, a team of puppeteers.
I worked on Aliens. I worked for Stan Winston at the time, and we had 14 people operating the Queen Alien. And I said, there's got to be a better way to integrate all this stuff so that fewer people are doing it. Rather than just being the eyes or just being the mouth, just being the ears or something, it is a much more holistic feel for a performer to have as much control over the puppet as possible.
Rick Lazzarini is a creature creator and puppeteer. He flew Tinkerbell in Hook, created detailed, articulated puppets of the three witches in Hocus Pocus, and a facially controlled spirit for Ghostbusters 2. His largest creature was an 8-foot-tall buffalo for Radio Flyer.
This thing weighed a ton, and so we had to carry it around on a huge camera crane or be able to pick it up from there and put it onto another rolling base to move it around the stage and make it appear that it was walking. With that kind of mass, you have to look past electronics and servo systems and look to hydraulic systems to move the bulk of its neck and its head.
At his company, the Character Shop, Rick has developed some of the most advanced puppeteering technology in the world.
I've got a pretty flexible face, and I can move my eyebrows independently. I've got my right brow operating the lower brows, and the left brow operating the uppers.
Rick developed a type of telemetry suit he calls the Waldo.
What I'm doing is sending electrical signals with potentiometers down the cable to a large box that is full of what we call ZIF cards. It was created by Stuart Ziff, who was a special effects designer. And this card is a little wonder card. It has controls here for gain, offset, and A and B limits. What that means is we can adjust the sensitivity of it so that just a very small movement of the sensor on my face produces a large output of movement in a servo. We can adjust the centering of that movement, and we can say, all right, well, it moves too much to the left and limit that, or it moves too much to the right and limit that.
The control box contains a power supply and 30 ZIF cards, enabling the puppeteer to control up to 30 discrete movements.
So starting from the bottom up, I've got a lip in-out. I've got a jaw. We've got an upper lip movement. And in addition, my smile movements are actuating these little glissant things.
Rick also uses radio-controlled PCM transmitters, which send out up to 9 digital signals.
I've got blink movements. I've got left, right, up, down movements for the lower eyes. And then I've got side-to-side movements for the upper eyes. The key to, or the philosophy behind all the Waldo mechanisms that I do, or anytime I do a control mechanism, is to try to make it very analogous to what the puppeteer is doing, so that way the puppeteer can perform.
The puppeteer's performance is the final link in a chain that started with the creature creator's imagination and continued with the skilled work of artists and technicians. The collaboration of the entire effects team brings the inanimate to life and movie magic to the screen.
It works.
The Carnosaur effects team has been working for 7 weeks with one goal in mind: to create the most believable monster they can within the limitations of their small budget and time constraints. The miniature version of the T-Rex is almost complete.
We opted to build the majority of our controls on a backpack. Basically, you strap on a backpack, and we have levers that strap onto your own arms. And when you move your arms, the creature moves its arms.
The backpack is similar in concept to the Waldo system, only simplified. Like the Waldo, however, it results in fewer puppeteers needed to operate the creature and better control of the actual movements. In addition to the puppeteer who wears the backpack, 3 other puppeteers will be required to operate the cable systems for the neck and legs, and the radio transmitter for the facial servos. With the 3rd scale miniature Carnosaur completed only 3 weeks before the start of principal photography, it's time to build the full-scale T-Rex. This version will be necessary for scenes in which the monster interacts on set with the human actors.
Give you an idea of the scale, the size of this foot compared to the leg over there. It's 5 times the size of the miniature puppet. These patterns were taken directly off the puppet.
John has decided not to construct the larger T-Rex using the standard mold and cast process. So he and technician Ken Hall researched new materials for this job. They found what they were looking for in L200, a very light polyurethane foam used in the aerospace industry. Sheets of L200, which handles like a flexible foam core, are being glued together to form the entire T-Rex understructure. The skin is crafted from urethane foam sheets and seared with hot tools to create scale patterns.
I think it looks authentic, it looks very similar to the miniature, and it does move, and it's lightweight enough to manage.
The whole thing, don't just turn it.
Under the light of an appropriately full moon, the full-scale Carnosaur arrives on location. When assembled, he stands 16 feet tall and measures 25 feet from head to tail.
The mechanics for the full-scale creature are very simple. They're pneumatically operated. Sort of like your screen door, how that opens and closes and pushes in and out. It's a very simple process, and all you really need is compressed air to make something move. Since we created a very lightweight dinosaur, we could manipulate it and give it, full articulation with a few lightweight instruments like the pneumatic systems. If we created it with standard procedures, sculpted and molded and casted, it would weigh close to 2.5 tons. The final creature that I delivered weighed 450 pounds.
Shots of both the full-scale and miniature creatures will be used in the movie's finale, in which the hero, Doc, played by Raphael Subarge, fights the monster with a skip loader.
In order to do that, we had to create a miniature version of Doc, the skip loader, and the Tyrannosaur that could fight. But in order to put Doc into the scenes with the Tyrannosaur and to give ourselves a very good sense of scope and geography, we created the full-size Tyrannosaur to interact.
Camera speed. Round marker A and D. Action!
John Crawford and an assistant operate the valve-controlled pneumatics, providing Carnosaur's head and upper torso movements.
Unfortunately, there is no textbook to give you a recipe on how to make dinosaurs fight on a low-budget movie and not make it look that low budget. You have to pull out all the tricks and all your imagination to try to create the illusion of what the script indicates.
A big part of that illusion is shooting in miniature, having the more articulated small version of Carnosaur do most of the fighting. This scene, for example, begins with the miniature, cuts to a shot of the full size in order to establish relationship with the actor, and then switches back to the miniature. The biggest challenge is making the miniature and full-size Carnosaurs appear as one.
There are certain things that you can do. I mean, the configuration is identical, the paint jobs are identical, but you may have a wrinkling system that's slightly different or a scale pattern that's slightly different. But the concept of the show was to be a horror film as opposed to a travelogue. And you're going to see these things darting out of shadows and leaping and biting. And I think with that approach, the difference between the full scale and the miniature is minimal. You really get back to the rudimentary elements of how filmmaking began. How can we create the illusion? We are not creating genetically engineered creatures. We are creating the illusion of a large dinosaur that can do these things. And in many ways, the challenge of a limited budget makes you function in a very creative way so that you can translate as much as you can into entertainment.
They are born of the imagination and ingenuity of Hollywood's creature creators. Terrifying aliens, fearsome sea monsters, and them. In the beginning, these incredibly lifelike monsters were merely raw materials. But in the hands of skilled effects artists, technicians, and puppeteers, the inanimate is brought to life.
I hate wildlife.
At least until the end of the movie.